Iowa needs to give at their end of the year banquet. Their punter needs to get the player of the year.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to a special championship week edition of the Odd Coaches Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams, and with us today, we're just going to get out the way. George Archer, thank you for joining us, sir. How are you today, sir?
Heated. Heated. That's right.
And to bring some levity, our favorite administrator, Robert Abney, has joined us on this Throwdown Thursday edition. Robert, how are you, sir?
I am living the dream. I didn't quite get the chaos I wanted today, but we got a little bit of it. So let's roll.
All right. So fans, in segment one, we're going to review the championship games themselves. Segment two, we'll take on the other championship games from the lesser conferences. And then segment three, we're going to let it all hang out because we're going to discuss the playoffs. We are current. We taped a little later, so let's get to it. And yes, fellas, go ahead and bring up who's won. That's all right. Georgia, Alabama. All right. So CKA picked Georgia. Georgia lost. I put my money down. Alabama beat Georgia 27-24. Alabama earned a well-fought victory. So, George, what did you actually think about the game itself, Georgia-Alabama?
Let me collect my thoughts right now. Georgia, it went the way I thought it would. I thought Alabama would get Georgia when they got back together. So it went the way I thought it would. Close, tough, hard-hitting, tough game, and Alabama came out on top.
All right. Robert, share your thoughts, and then I have a special guest to introduce for recap.
Man, I have to admit, I did not see a single college football game this weekend. So everything that I'm talking about is stuff that I've talked about with y'all. I have read, I have seen on social media. I know that, Alabama has kind of lived dangerously ever since losing that game to Texas. They've had some identity issues at quarterback. But hey, they showed up. They showed up and they won the one that mattered. So there you go.
All right. So fans, sneak it in. And I will try not to get too emotional. Joining us for this special edition, my favorite post player, Lewis Woodland. Lewis played for me basketball, but he's a football guy through and through. I used to say I borrow him a couple of times a year. Lewis, I will not call you by your nickname, and I have to put it on my screen. But one, how are you, man? And thank you for joining us.
Hey, man, I'm doing well. You can always call me Kid. It's a fond nickname. I wear it with pride. Just to, quickly go over how long I've been, under the tutelage of Coach Adams here. He joined the Springbrook Blue Devils when I was a sophomore. I was the youngest kid that he chose could, play on his team. We were absolutely loaded from top to bottom, and I was a football guy playing basketball, man. Took charges, blocked shots, big rebounder. Got to shoot some threes in my senior year though. So
and young players, you can play both. It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Lou, I'm sorry, hey Kid, tell me what you think about Georgia, Alabama, the football game only right now. We're getting reaction on the show. How'd you like that championship game? I picked Georgia, and I was quite wrong.
Man, I picked Alabama going into it. There's always that heartfelt rivalry that's going to make the underdog fight a little bit harder. And whenever they're close, right, I'm going to go with the underdog. Georgia's going through some changes at quarterback. Bennett's gone, right? They're still trying to figure that out. They struggled with some SEC teams. Alabama had their struggles, but when it boils down to, equal versus equal, who has a better defense and who's going to run the ball better, that was Alabama yesterday. So they won the game, man. It was a good one to watch.
All right. So now Oregon played Washington in Vegas. I picked Oregon, won't run from it. And Washington beat Oregon straight up 34-31. Washington earned it. I thought Oregon's coach did a horrible job. Robert, what was your reaction to the Washington Oregon game?
I was surprised. I was surprised because I think, like everybody else, I thought Oregon is playing really well. Washington hasn't been playing well at all, and hey, came out and took it from them.
Yes, they did. George, reaction to Oregon, Washington.
Oregon's late starting cost them. That's basically what happened. Those first 3 drives came up empty. I think they kicked a field goal there, but Bo didn't become good Bo, because we used to have good Bo and bad Bo when he was at Auburn. We didn't get good Bo until later on. So that's one of the problems we got.
All right. Coach Woodland, what did you think about Oregon, Washington?
Whoever has the ball last is going to win in the Pac-12, man. There's no defense to be had. Whoever, it's interesting because that's how you measure success in college for a quarterback. Hey, did we score on this drive? And Oregon didn't score on the first 3, so they were in trouble.
Okay. Robert, I'm going to you with Michigan, Iowa. I picked Michigan, got that one right. But Iowa didn't even score. And yes, Michigan's the #1 team in the country. Robert, let's try not to laugh too much at Iowa, but what were your thoughts on Michigan, Iowa?
Well, I just wanted to update everybody. I just saw on Twitter or X or whatever it is right now, Iowa thinks the game is still happening. They're still playing, and they haven't scored yet.
Yes, that's about right. That's about right. All right, kid, what did you think about Michigan, Iowa?
Iowa fought them well. Came down to Michigan is just a dog on defense. They couldn't move the ball. Michigan did just enough. I would like to see them, put their foot down and really put some dominance behind it, really earn that #1 spot, but they did enough.
And George, how is Iowa so bad, man? What are your thoughts on Michigan, Iowa?
Iowa needs to give at their end of the year banquet. Their punter needs to get the player of the year. They play. Their defense is solid.
Yeah, they are.
But they have no offense whatsoever. And what plagued them all year, plagued them in that game. I mean, if they had a little bit of offense, they could have been in that game. So yeah, they're offensively, they're bad.
Okay, Lewis, I'm gonna go with you. Louisville, Florida State. I had Louisville. They're playing a true freshman in the biggest stage. And it was a bad game, and I thought the fans lost. What do you think, sir? Louisville, Florida State.
Man, Florida State is loaded, right? When you can go to your second, third string quarterback and still come out of games and wins, that shows everybody believes in the system. Plays called is going to be the play that gets executed. It's a shame that they're not going to get a shot to really show it in the playoff because, hey man, it hurts to go undefeated, go to play LSU and beat them. I don't care that the quarterback got hurt. The second string and third string guy have been practicing all year long. And if the system works and we're able to be successful on defense, we can change the game from a 35 to 28 game down to a 14-7 game, right? We can start running the football more effectively. The only thing I didn't like is, there were some shadow effects that you notice as a coach. They're still calling quarterback runs, right? They're still calling some of the things that are more suited to the first guy. I'd have liked them to see them make the case that, hey, he's down, but this is what we're going to do here moving forward. It might have helped them out a bit in going into selection.
All right, George, Louisville, Florida State, you got the floor.
I'm with Lewis. When you got a team that can come in and still win a game on their third quarterback, and still win and to win a conference championship with your third quarterback it's just you got to give them all the credit in the world. That team is ready to go on ball. They come in the right mindset. They're following the plan. And Lewis, I'll speak to what you were talking about. They didn't change the offense up because the freshman is a runner. So they were trying to put those running plays back in because they didn't do it a whole lot with Watermaker, and he ended up getting hurt anyway when they did it. But what I saw from them was pure heart and a well-coached team. They deserve to be in the Final Four.
All right. And Robert, your thoughts, Louisville, Florida State.
I really expected Louisville to be able to move the ball and score. And Florida State on defense just shut them down. And I mean, kudos to them. Third string quarterback, and they found a way to win. They found a way to get it done. They stayed undefeated.
And not rewarded for getting it done on the field.
Nope.
All right, Robert, I'm going to stay with you for our final game for this segment. Oklahoma State versus Texas. I picked Texas. Texas won, and they walloped Oklahoma State. They did what they had to do. Gundy blows another opportunity. You're in Texas now. What's the reaction?
Oh, people are fired up, and I'm going to be interested to see what happens with the playoff. Texas is in. Let's see what that looks like. There's going to be a lot of gnashing of teeth down in College Station saying, "Oh, we going to be there. We going to be there." Well, you ain't been there yet. So keep on.
Hey, George, what do you think? Texas, Oklahoma State. Any thoughts?
I'm glad to see that they rose to the occasion because they've been on a roller coaster ride. I think we talked before about which Texas team was actually going to get. They've been a little Jekyll and Hyde, and it seems like the last 2 weeks, the team that beat Alabama actually showed up, and they did their thing. Now they had their hiccups, but they did their thing, and they deserve. I can say they deserve to get their nod into the Final Four.
All right, kids, you got the final word. Segment 1. Texas, Oklahoma State. What are your thoughts?
Texas had the performance they needed to have to make it. They came out and really dominated Oklahoma State. Really enjoyed watching the game because Keelan Robinson ended up leading them in rushing, and I coached against them in high school. So I love watching the guys who I used to scout or used to coach have success at the next level, and good one to watch. Did enough. Happy for them.
All right, fans, when we get back in segment 2, we'll break down the other championship games. And then in segment 3, we'll give a full analysis of the wrong selections that the committee made. We'll be right back on the iCoaches podcast.
Why should student athletes use the CKA SAVE Project academic and athletic consulting services? Over the past 15 to 20 years, colleges, universities, professional sports teams, business organizations, and others have increased their use of consulting services to improve their decision-making processes and results. Over the same time, the athletic and academic landscape has changed for high school and college student athletes as the NCAA has raised initial academic eligibility requirements for student athletes while decreasing the number of transfer restrictions. Former college student athletes have noted that they were academic and athletically unprepared for the rigors of college. Let the CKA SAVE Project's close to 30 years of academic and athletic experience help guide student athletes to increase success as we work to help student athletes achieve the goal of obtaining a college degree. For more information, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the iCoaches podcast. This is segment 2. We're going to knock out the other secondary championship games, and we're going to start with Robert. New Mexico State versus Liberty. I did have Liberty winning. They won 49-35, but feel free to talk about New Mexico State once more before bowl season.
I wish the Aggies could have gotten it done, but Liberty's really good. But again, that said, like I said last week, this is the only New Mexico State team. The only other New Mexico State team that won more than 10 games was 1960. They won the Sun Bowl. They went 11-0. That was a long time ago.
Yes,
Hardin Simmons was in their conference then, and Hardin Simmons plays D3 football now. So, Aggies going to a bowl game. Good on them. Have fun with that.
All right, George, any thoughts about New Mexico State Liberty? I know you're a big fan of Liberty, sarcastically said.
No, hey man, Liberty. I told you when you got these underneath programs, these small schools that wind up getting a bunch of transfers in from big time programs. They and Liberty has perfected this, and that's how the one kid that got drafted, a quarterback that's in Tennessee right now. Liberty's perfected this, so they're going to be with the mid majors or whatever you want to call them now, non-power five. They're always going to be up there.
All right, Lewis, any thoughts on Liberty beating New Mexico State?
Liberty is the Tampa Bay Rays for both, coach and player, right? The coach is on a mission to make it to the big time show. You got to win football games to do that. Unfortunately, the landscape in college football says you got to win now, 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 now. Don't build through recruiting, build through the portal. So they're doing a great job of it. It's hard to beat hodgepodge of the best remaining, right? It's just it's showing up to the basketball court when a team's been on fire, 5 games deep, and you're just trying to get warm. It's not going to happen, right? So New Mexico State put up a fight, but Liberty's a good football team. I want to see them go and play JMU, see if it's real, or what the deal is.
All right. George, Boise State versus UNLV. I picked UNLV like a dummy. Boise State, who fired their coach. That's why I went to you. I mean, why'd they fire their coach again? Thoughts on Boise State, UNLV, George?
I told you, Boise State thinks they're suffering from delusions. They think they should be one, and it was just as good as any of these Power 5 conferences. But like we said before, it is hard to recruit out there. So they just but they're looking for somebody to come back in. They can get those dudes off of the West Coast from LA and stuff that UCLA and USC and them miss. The problem for Boise State, the biggest problem for Boise State right now is Colorado. And because Deion is in Colorado, that makes another player out there in the West Coast to take up those major players, and it's going to suffer. So Boise State has got to find a coach with some swag. But, they got players out there they got players out there. And I think that it was so much turmoil there getting rid of the coach. UNLV wasn't playing with much. They didn't play anybody. So it was, I think Boise State's kids just came and played for real.
All right, Robert, thoughts on Boise and UNLV as somebody who spent time on that side of the country?
Boise has kept it rolling for a long time, and they've started to slide downhill, and they don't like that, which is why they fired their coach. I don't know how long they're going to be able to keep it rolling because, as George just said, Boise's a beautiful place, but ain't no, if you don't like hunting and fishing, I don't know how you're going to get people up there.
All right, Lewis, thoughts on Boise State and UNLV?
I'm a UNLV fan, only because of their offensive coordinator, Brendan Marion. He got his start as a wide receiver, and he's moved around a bit. But I like the style of offense that he runs. It's very complex, and it's fun to watch. It's disappointed in their output, but I think that the Boise State guys just they had a transfer portal tryout on TV, right? It said, hey, come see me because I'm out of here. They got rid of my guy.
I'm gonna stay with you, kid, because it's true. Prairie View A&M, FAMU was my pick. FAMU won. FAMU will take on Howard in the Celebration Bowl. Won't belabor the point, but FAMU or Howard, because we knew they were going to beat Prairie View. What do you think, kid?
Man, I think FAMU scores a lot of points. They score in bunches. I don't think the defense for Howard can really weather that storm, and it'll get out of hand. I do think that Howard can score with them, but I just think that FAMU just has a little bit more speed on defense. Will turn some of those big plays into shorter gains, and kind of run away with it there in the end.
All right, George, I want you to comment on App State and Troy. I picked Troy. I know you know of App State and Hide the Women and Children in Boone, but they laid an egg. What are your thoughts on App State?
Well, one, they weren't playing in Boone. And part two of that, Troy's running back is a monster. I think he had close to 200 yards. And that ground and pound game that Troy was playing, I think I did pick Troy, and I because I had seen him earlier. So I was Troy's tough. Troy's going to be tough.
All right, George, I do want to stay with you. Talk about Miami of Ohio versus Toledo, because I'm saving SMU for Robert. Toledo was my pick, and I picked wrong. Miami beat them straight up. What happened with that?
In what's called the Maction, I'm gonna tell you right now, they put the ground and pound on Toledo, and what I found out was Toledo could not stand the heat because they just out physical them, and they have Miami of Ohio's got a decent back, and you thought the two-headed monster for Toledo was going to show up, but time of possession was all with Miami of Ohio, and they just bludgeoned them. They just straight bludgeoned them.
All right, Robert, you are in Texas. SMU versus Tulane. I'm not gonna lie, I picked Tulane. SMU's quarterback was out, so I'm like, all right, Tulane's got a shot to make it, and they blew their big opportunity and relevance and money. Talk to me about SMU. Southern Methodist, are they back?
I don't know if they're back, but that sure doesn't hurt them going to the ACC now. That doesn't hurt them at all. I'm still interested to see how that's going to go, because they're still, they're still behind Texas A&M, Baylor, Texas Tech. They're still down here, like with Texas State, North Texas, maybe a little higher, but is it going to help them? Yes. Is it going to break them, break them into that top four that's in the Power Five? No, I don't see that.
All right. So fans, when we get back, we're going to have the real conversation about what the committee did or didn't do. And we're also going to mention the transfer portal, which is why we have Lewis here to share some insight. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches podcast.
The reviews are in for Dr. Keith Adams' book, Finding the Balance, My Personal Journey to Academic and Athletic Success. College professor and student athlete academic expert Dr. Lisa Rubin said, "There is nothing out there like this book, so I do hope people will pay attention and give it a read." Former George Mason standout Folarin Campbell said, "Consider this book an opportunity to work directly with Dr. Adams, just like I did. I assure you that there will be something you can take away that will be useful to you throughout your personal journey." Ryan Waite, a recent college graduate who is a software engineer, said, "I like how the book is based on research, which makes it good for general students as well as student athletes." The book serves as both a memoir to Dr. Adams' 30-year academic and athletic career, as well as an instructional guide to assist student athletes, parents, coaches, teachers, and administrators navigate through the challenges of finding a better balance between academic and athletic success. The book includes over 15 personal stories and anecdotes from Dr. Adams, along with numerous former players and colleagues from a variety of sports and endeavors. You can order your copy at www.ckasaveproject.org. From the main page, simply click CKA Save Project Services and order the Find the Balance book. For more information, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches podcast. In segment 3, we're going to do a preview of the college football playoff, and we're going to go in the order the committee selected, starting with number 1, Michigan. George, what are your thoughts on Michigan? Can they win this whole thing?
The Big Ten has not fared well. Since the playoffs started, we got one winner from the Big Ten. Michigan has laid an egg every time they've come in. They start off against they got Alabama, which is another one of their nemesis. If I'm betting money, I'm going with Alabama to win that game. I don't know if Michigan's going to get out of that round. Because
All right.
the other problem with that is, and without reason I'll say that, is because if you look at it, the Big Ten really has one game every year. And they played their one game. I don't think Ohio State was as good as they've been in the past. And Michigan is probably about the same. So that's where I'm going.
All right. Lewis, what do you think about Michigan?
I think it's going to be tough for Michigan to beat Alabama, primarily because they play the same style of football. And I just think that Alabama's a stouter defense. Michigan is stout within what they defend in the Big Ten. The SEC is built to stop the run. And then when you have to throw the ball down the field, you're throwing at 4 and 5 star athletes everywhere. That's a different style than what they defend in the Big Ten, right? Big Ten, for primarily, you're going to go see Wisconsin, going to have to figure out how to stop the run, go to see Purdue. They're going to try to air the ball out a little bit. Go to see Ohio State, who's going to mix it up with a bit of spread. But nothing like, what the SEC is built to really shut down, right? You will not run the football well against Alabama. So I just don't see Michigan overcoming that hurdle. If they had a deep threat, like a true, number one wide receiver, move him around formationally, get him on a nickel, maybe catch him in man-to-man. I think the danger is that Alabama's really going to be able to play some zone. And when you play zone, it even more impacts the run game, right? You get the safeties involved, flying downhill. I just don't see Corum having the game or Edwards having the game that they need to have, unless McCarthy can really do some work outside of the pocket, creating some plays down the field. That's the only opportunity that I see that they have. But how do you do that when you've got Braswell and that other creature chasing you down everywhere that you go, right? So it's a tough ask for Michigan.
All right. Robert, any belief in Harbaugh? Because I don't think we have an issue with them being number one, but can they beat Alabama?
Well, so as George and Lewis are talking, I'm kind of scrolling through social media over here. The reaction to Michigan when they saw Alabama come up as number 4 was less than enthusiastic. I wouldn't want to play Alabama either. I just don't. I mean, the SEC is, even though they have not had the best year and it wasn't the strongest the conference has been, the SEC it's just different. And I agree with these guys. I don't think Michigan's going to be able to run the ball on Alabama. And I don't know is they're going to be able to stop the run against Alabama, and that's going to be the difference. I mean, Jaden Milroe for Alabama, that quarterback, he's kind of figured stuff out as the year's gone along, and that is a big, strong dude, and they're not going to be afraid to run him. And I just don't know if they can handle that.
Hey, George, tell me about Washington. Washington is number 2. They had to be number 2 based on the criteria, and I still don't believe in them. I'll be picking against them. But what do you think about Washington? And am I just having my West Coast bias?
No, because the Pac-10 has
Pac-12.
Pac-12, whatever they are, it's same thing. They're built off of all of them are built off of offense. There's no there's no defense there. If it is, it's minimal. They have what I will say about them is they have some of the best quarterbacks in college football. That being said, they don't have some of the best offensive lines because they don't play defense the way the SEC or the ACC plays defense. So this is where it is. They're, most of their games will be, let me see if I can outscore you and who's got the ball last. Penix is great. I think their matchup is a good one for them because they got another team that, that they, depending on which team comes out, which team comes out off the bus that day for Texas. I think it's a good matchup, but I'd still go with Texas because I think Texas is more battle tested, and I'm saying battle tested as in playing hard nosed teams that can win in the trenches, as opposed to Washington, who there's not many of those hard nosed teams that put in the trenches in the Pac-12 now. The formerly Pac-12 now dysfunctions. Yeah. So.
All right, Lawrence, Washington. Am I being too hard on them? Should I believe in them more? Tell me. You know I trust you because you called my defense.
Hey man, it's the story of the Pac-12. It's West Coast football. They're looking to score 200 points a game. I think that the staff down in Texas is going to do a good job of doing similar work than they did to Alabama. The only difference is that Alabama looked to hold the ball and give you 7-8% possessions a game. Say, hey, are you going to figure it out? No, okay, well, we're going to beat you. Texas is going to occupy the football. They're going to do a lot of short passing game. They're going to put the ball on the ground. They're going to see if Washington can really play defense at all. And if they can't, they're going to just occupy the football and run them down. And it'll be, a mid-high scoring game, but Washington needs the score to be 66-60 to win it, right? Who has the ball last? If it's anywhere in the 30s, if it's in the low 40s, it's a Texas football game.
All right. Speaking of that, Robert, I'm going to jump straight to Texas. Texas is third. Texas won the Big 12. I don't think that's that big of an accomplishment following the Big 12 all year. What do you think? Texas versus Washington, the fan base in Texas just chomping at the bit. You've got Texas, Robert. Tell us your thoughts.
Well, what am I supposed to say after listening to Lewis talk about defense as a defensive coordinator? I got nothing. So it looks like Michigan, Alabama is going to be the Rose Bowl, which actually is probably to Michigan's advantage because that means that Washington and Texas are in the Sugar Bowl, which is not right next to Alabama. So, I mean, that's probably helpful to them. I don't personally know how much it matters for Washington in terms of where that game was. I guess if it would have been in the Rose Bowl, it would have been helpful to them. New Orleans is not that far from Austin. That will be a very pro-Texas crowd. I just don't. I'm not convinced that Washington can do anything to keep Texas from winning that game. I think Texas will control the game. That I think they will defensively. They will manage to stop Washington enough. I still think Washington is going to score. I still think they're going to score. But they ain't going to be able to score enough, and Texas will control the game. I think.
All right, George, Alabama's 4. They're the SEC champion. Every week when we do Around the Territories, we always leave the SEC last because that's real football. We're not slighting the rest of the country, but come on, man. If y'all were in that conference, y'all be some bums. Okay. So Alabama against Michigan. What are you thinking about with Alabama?
But they're probably the most dangerous team in the playoffs. And I say that because their formula can travel anywhere. They can take it anywhere at any point in time. They're going to out physical you. They have the luxury of being able to play, and Saban does this with his defense. He loves to play a lot of bump and run and man on the corners, on the outside. He leaves the safeties free to come down. That's why you got those monsters down there, safeties that are coming down, crashing, and with linebackers that just come in, then they're always playing downhill. Their only thing is, and the thing that always gets Alabama, and it gets a lot of SEC teams, is to have a mobile quarterback, because the lane integrity is so hard for them because they're coming full speed. And if you can get past that first wave and your quarterback can run, you can do some things. If you look back over Alabama's situation or the past through Saban's dynasty, they've had problems with mobile quarterbacks. That as soon as that first wave rush comes fast, they can step through and they're going to gain yards. The big problem is that their running backs, Corm. I love Corm. He's a DMV product. He's going to get hurt because they're going to hit him hard. And McCarthy does not have the foot speed to get away and get outside, and they don't have receivers to break to create separation. I think their one thing to do might be to go spread, but I don't think they got enough protection to do it. So if I'm looking at that defensive wise, they're probably going to control the line of scrimmage, and then offensive wise, their quarterback coming into his own. I don't think Michigan's got one real good corner, but Alabama's got 4 good wide receivers. So I don't know how you stop. I don't know, it doesn't add up well. So it's going to be, I see it being the same result. I'm looking for Alabama to be in the national championship.
All right. So as we wrap up our initial thoughts, Robert and the committee and the panel, we got Florida State 5, Georgia 6. Robert, you got 30 seconds. Do we feel bad for Florida State? Do we care about Georgia? What's your reaction to 5 and 6? Go in any direction you want.
Well, I mean, Georgia, when they lost that game, they were out. That was going to be it, especially with Florida State winning. Florida State is the only Power 5 conference undefeated conference champion that's ever been left out of the playoff. I don't think the committee feels bad because next year there are 12 teams and it'll never happen again. And so whatever, I think that's kind of how they felt, whatever. I suppose it's possible that that maybe, TCU making it last year and going to the national championship game and getting drilled. That may have been in the back of somebody's mind. I don't know. But, do I think Florida State was one of the 4 best teams? No, I don't. Do I think that their record and their achievements dictated that historically they should be included in the playoff? Yeah, I do. They should have been there. But I thought Alabama was going to be in, and I think I agree with George. I think Alabama will be in the national championship game.
All right, George, Florida State, Georgia, any thoughts before we talk about the transfer portal?
I'm gonna jump on my soapbox. I think this was a robbery at night with no mask on, and they didn't even do anything about it. You go into SEC country and beat a quality SEC Florida with your backup quarterback and him getting knocked out when you were already up by 10. You go into a conference championship with probably arguably the second best, and I know Big Ten people will sit here and cry, but I'm going to say this, arguably the second best conference in the country, and you win that championship with your 3rd string quarterback. You go into LSU and you dominate LSU. And LSU gave Alabama all they could handle up until they hurt Jaden Daniels. So I think it is a robbery to Florida State not to have them in the national championship. And they only did this because of Jaden Daniels getting hurt, which I will say to the committee, you're liars, and this shows you how much pull the SEC actually has. You let Ohio State in that year. When they lost, they were down to their 3rd quarterback. Carnell went in, and then they ended up winning the national championship. So because Saban was in a position that needed to where he could be in the national championship picture, somebody had to go, and you couldn't make you couldn't go against your rule of saying the head-to-head matchup because Texas beat Alabama earlier. So what are we going to do? We're going to put the one with the quarterback loss, and we're going to bump them out and let Saban in, which is ridiculous to me. Honestly, you could have left Texas out and put Alabama in, because I think if Texas and Alabama play again, which I think they will in the national championship game, Alabama's going to blow them out. That's
Yep.
Oh,
Okay. Not that ESPN is booking. Kid, Florida State's 5, Georgia 6. You've got the floor, my friend. Have at it.
I completely agree that Florida State was just straight up robbed. It's it goes to show, the nature of the game right now, and as you'll hear, is there's a money grab going on right now in the NCAA. Just straight up and down. You can't play around with it anymore. Amateur sport is dead. These guys are semi-pro athletes. Let's just call it as you see it, right? They wanted Alabama in it for their fan base and for just the draw to TV. It's hard to sell a Florida State versus Michigan game when Florida State's coming in hobbled, right? That's multi-million dollars that they're leaving on the table, and they're only looking to make as much money as they possibly can before they go to 12 and they saturate it, right? So, it's a shame, especially as a coach, when you've put together everything that you possibly can to get out there and have your opportunity to compete, and you get stolen due to the politics of it, right? That's why you coach, right? That's why the center lines up and snaps the football, right? That's why the guard lines up and blocks the one tech or the three tech. Is because it doesn't matter who's in that spot. It's going to be another body, and we just got to get the job done. Period. It's unfortunate. To be honest, if they were going to make a serious move, right, then I would look at eliminating Texas, because losing the game that Texas lost to Oklahoma, that's a big matchup. That's their Michigan Ohio State. You lose that game. If you're saying Ohio State doesn't go because they lost that game, then how does Texas go, right? But again, it's Texas is a really good football team. They're going to be competitive in that first game. It'll be interesting to see what happens there afterward. But man, Florida State got robbed. It's unfortunate.
Okay. All right, fans. Transfer portal season is open. And I want to give a brief overview before we give it to Lou to close us out and maybe some brief reactions. But the official fall transfer portal is December 4th to January 2nd. So the transfer portal opens the day after the college football selections and it closes a month later. Players can officially enter the portal at midnight on December 4th. Many players have already declared their intention to transfer. Also, if a coach is fired or leaves a program, the school's players can enter the portal immediately. There is a spring window from April 15th to April 30th. And last year, more than 2,100 NCAA football players entered the portal. Lewis is still on the sidelines. He is still in the belly of the beast. And college coaches tell me directly they're really going to the portal much more quicker than high school. So, Kit, the floor is yours, and I'll let our colleagues react before we wrap up. Have at it, sir.
And I'll tell you that my belief in where the portal is now and where it needs to migrate to is jaded, because I coach high school football, and I'm talking to college coaches that are coming down, and they're saying, hey, look, we have to win now, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We need a guy who can come in and start at Mike next week, because if we don't, then our defense falls apart. I'm looking for a new house, and I don't know where the house is going to be. So, I get it. I think that the problem that was generated, through NIL and through the just mismanagement of administrations across the country, it's now affecting the entire landscape of college football. You mix in NIL, coaches who, are moderately successful finding, hardship and walking into the AD's office and having a good conversation, and the ability for a kid who is committed to your school to say, hey, look, I don't want to be here anymore, and hit the door with no reasoning outside of, I just think the grass might be greener. You create a problem. But my overall belief is that administrations need to get better at retaining their coaching staffs. They need to really focus on the development of high school children into college adults, and stop giving the easy out of, hey, you got to win now, so let's go to the portal. And if the portal guy comes and he plays for a year and leaves, that's okay as long as we win 10 games.
All right. George, you're a former athletic director at a high profile football school. Your thoughts to Lewis's commentary.
I agree with him, because see, the dark side of the portal that a lot of people don't talk about, and it happened to one of my former players, is they jump in it and then they don't get offers, or they don't get offers that they think they are, and then they end up at a lower tier school or somewhere that they haven't been, or they really didn't want to be, which was, the situation was worse than the one they were in. So it's playing Russian roulette, because you can't get in the portal without tape. You can't get in the portal without, and there's no guarantees. And see, the problem is now with the portal is the your program's access to NIL opportunities, because I think Kirby Smart said it the best. It's going to cost you like $1.5 million, $2 million to get a good starting quarterback, but it is, because one of the reasons to come into the portal and going in the portal and getting people out of it is the money you can make once you get to your next stop. I think some coaches have utilized this and taken full advantage of it. I love Deion, and Deion did probably the best job that anybody's seen by bringing talent in. And a number of other places have. The Florida State, since we were talking about them, they did a damn good job. But they're going to have to make and it's not going to be up to the NCAA. It's going to be on schools to make adjustments to the portal, as opposed to one governing body. Schools are going to have to make adjustments to the portal, because you have to do, like Lewis said, do a better job of retaining your coaches, but also do a better job of your revenue, what you're doing and what you can offer these kids. Yeah, we've known for a long time that college athletes aren't amateur athletes. They were just getting used. And now the tables have kind of turned, and it's in their favor in a lot of cases. So, hey man, I can't be mad at them, but at the same time, they need to have an understanding of what they're getting into, because there's spots, man, that these kids are going to be left out there, and they're going to be someplace that they don't want to be, or they're not going to get picked up, or it's almost like bide your time. One of my best friend's son, he just ended up leaving. He's playing at Bucknell this year, but he wanted to go to a Power 5. And first thing I told him was, if you do work for 2 years, have some good tape, then you can jump in the portal too, because you got to take advantage of it while you can. So it's where it is, man.
All right. And Robert, as our administrator, close us out. Your thoughts on Lewis' commentary before we wrap up.
Well, the one thing that I keep coming back to there are a couple of things I keep coming back to with the portal stuff. And the first thing is that, I mean, this is, and both of these guys have said that this is where we are. These are the unintended consequences of the NCAA not figuring this out when it started to rear its head. That's the first thing. The second thing is that it makes me think about is the importance for coaches, not only, and Lewis alluded to, administrations finding ways to do a better job of retaining their coaches, but building a culture within your athletic department and within your programs where not only are you retaining coaches, but you're also working to retain your players. And I honestly don't know the answer to that. I don't know how possible that is in this day and age, if it's too idealistic, because, it's easy to talk about culture, but it's not as easy to talk about culture when you're talking about young people who see windows of opportunity where they can make some money. And it's hard to say that they should not go get the money when they can get it. But I think that's one of the things that schools really need to try to focus on is retaining their coaches and building a culture where, kids feel supported, and they feel supported from an athletic perspective. They feel supported from a scholastic perspective, and also where they feel supported financially, where, there are NIL opportunities for kids, where there are opportunities for kids so that they ain't having to worry about, not only where is their next meal coming from, do they have what they need, but also the same for their families. And that's awfully idealistic, and I don't know if it's possible, but I do think I think as time passes, I think more people will aspire to that.
All right. Well, that is a great place to leave it. This has been a great week as we've celebrated over 400 episodes now, the Odd Coaches Podcast. Every week we try to provide our viewers and our listeners with educational, entertaining, insightful, informal commentary about sports and the things that happen in and out of sports. We look at sports from the lens of coaches and players, and the student athlete lens and the parent lens. It's an absolute pleasure every week to come on with you. And the people in front of me are a microcosm of my life. I've known George since middle school. Lewis was my player. He is theory into practice, and the work he's doing, I'm so proud of him. And Robert and I came together because of the work, along with just a love of both things. So fans, on behalf of our Cavalcade of Stars, I'm Dr. Keith Adams, saying thank you for listening and or watching the Odd Coaches Podcast, and we'll see you on the sidelines. Till next time, take care.
The Odd Coaches Podcast is sponsored by the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project is an industry leader in providing student-athlete academic and athletic support. From assessing student-athletes' academic and athletic skills, to measuring and monitoring student-athlete academic progress, to improving student-athlete time management and organizational skills, the CKA Save Project provides wraparound services for student-athletes from middle school through college. For more information, visit us on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org or schedule a free consultation with Dr. Keith Adams by emailing cka@ckasaveproject.org. We hope you enjoyed today's show. The Odd Coaches Podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday through Friday on most weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the Odd Coaches Podcast on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow the Odd Coaches Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Odd Coaches. Follow Dr. Adams on Twitter and Instagram at CKA Save Project. In addition, follow Coach Mike Francis on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Franchise, spelled Coach Franchize. For more information about the CKA Save Project, please visit them on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org. See you next time on the Odd Coaches Podcast.